So do you enjoy the content here on Thoughtful Faith? If so, be sure to hit the notification bell. This ensures that our new videos show up on your feed. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook group called Thoughtful Saints, where myself and others discuss the sorts of topics found on this channel. And lastly, if you think other people would benefit from this video, please be sure to share it. There's a very typical stance that an atheist will have towards Christians, first of all. And then that disdain is even deeper when it comes to Latter-day Saints. It's like Christians are a joke and Mormons are a bad joke, right? Like that's kind of the levels to it. And you wrote a really interesting blog post. I believe it was called, Is Mormonism the Least Plausible Form of Christianity? And in it, you kind of had summed up your sentiment that you had shared with Sam Harris. And I'll actually quote what it says here. You wrote in the article that that you shared the same sentiment as Sam Harris, and you quoted him. And Sam Harris said this, and you said you shared the sentiment, which is that, quote, Mormonism is objectively less credible than Christianity because Mormons are committed to believing nearly all the implausible things that Christians believe, plus many additional implausible things, end quote. And you went on to say, Christianity plus a lot of weird, implausible things. I think that's an accurate summation of how many view Mormonism. But I've come to believe that that view is entirely mistaken. That caught my attention. So tell us a little bit about maybe how that started to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, so Harris is right that if theory B is just the same as theory A, but it's, theory B is less plausible than theory A. If theory B is just theory A plus a bunch of weird implausible things, like that's obviously true, but that's just not how I see Mormonism. I think that some LDS theology, like it's tantamount to just Christianity minus a bunch of weird implausible things. So some of those weird implausible things being like creation ex nihilo, or the view that, this world was created by a perfect being of unlimited power, or, eternal conscious torment for the vast majority of humanity. Like, you reject like the standard incoherent view of the Trinity. And it's like, that's not Christianity plus weird things. That's Christianity minus weird things. Unless you think it's somehow advantageous to advocate this totally incoherent view of the Trinity, or it's actually, it's a huge probability boost for Christianity when you say that most people are going to be eternally consciously tormented, or, creation ex nihilo posits some kind of, or has some kind of advantage. And like, I just don't see it that way. I don't know any atheists who would see it that way. So I think that, a lot of it just comes down to prejudice, because Mormonism is so recent and so near, like a lot of the stuff happened like, pretty close to where I'm sitting right now. And like, that's just kind of weird, like I feel like David Hume made this point where he's like, a lot of these crazy stories, it always has to happen in some far off enchanted land, and whenever it's like here, it just seems like sillier somehow. And there are like legitimate criticisms of Mormonism, like, but they seem to lean very heavily on like the historical and, scriptural side of things. And I'm more interested in philosophy. Like, I don't care as much about that stuff. And I've heard Mormon apologists try to answer a lot of those like historical objections, and, sometimes it's plausible, sometimes it's not. But what's sure to me is that it's at least as plausible as the stuff that Christians say about the problems with the Bible, so I just don't see Mormonism as like, oh, it's just so much less plausible. It's just a bad joke compared to Christianity, which is just a joke. It's like, no, like their apologetics, your guys' apologetics is like just as convincing / unconvincing as the stuff that people will rattle off about, camels in the Old Testament or whatever it is. Like, so it seems like you guys are on equal footing when it comes to that stuff. But then on the more like philosophical side, you have definite advantages. So